RunDNA has an incredible range of running and walking footwear, apparel and accessories, catering for anyone who is looking for the right shoe and fit. They're trusted by podiatrists and physiotherapists right across Adelaide. The RunDNA fitter's advice is second to none. So if it's time for new walkers or runners, you can find RunDNA, 20 Manton Street, Hindmarsh, or the other location, 391 Fullarton Road at Fullarton. Both stores open 7 days a week, plenty of off-street parking. You can find them online as well, rundna.com.au. If you run or walk, then you need to run DNA.
It's Thursday the 17th of April. Welcome to Hooked on Sport. It's the Easter weekend and we've got a special episode for you. Hookie and I discuss this week's big issues in sport, and then Zoe Manton and Michael Munn join us to tell us about Glenelg Golf Club's big double in the Golf SA Metropolitan Pennant finals. A shout out to RunDNA, our first sponsor. Jack, Josh and Abby, it's great to have you and your team on board, and we really appreciate your support. And thanks to you, our listeners, our team, for your support. We appreciate you listening and sharing the pod. So pull up the windows, pop on the aircon, crank up the volume, and let's get into Hooked on Sport. G'day, Hookie.
Wallace, what an intro. You've been busy. We're about to have an Easter holiday break, but you have really burnt the candle at both ends. G'day, nice to see you.
Good to see you.
And happy Easter to you, and happy Easter to everyone tuning in. Hope you have a good break with family over the next couple of days.
Thanks, Hookie, and to you too. We're both golf fans, and it's a golf episode today. 4 days on, what are your thoughts on the Masters? Is it the best sporting event in the world?
I think it's the best televised sporting event in the world. You think about how many golf tournaments can be pretty tawdry and boring, and yet the structure of the Masters and Augusta National and the fact that they leave, well, a heck of a lot of money on the table. It's basically just a handshake agreement. They manage every part of the production, and then they just have an expectation that the broadcaster follows them. And I think what they have been able to create as a result is something incredibly special, perhaps beyond anything else in world sport. And that's coming from a sport which traditionally on television has been a little bit slow. So it is incredible. And I've got to say, what a victory from Rory McIlroy. I mean, I am reminded of situations in life where, where you want something so much, where you're just so desperate for it, where it is beyond your wildest dreams that you could achieve something, and suddenly it's within grasp, and you go to sort of almost extreme lengths to sabotage yourself to blow it. I'm sort of picturing someone applying for their dream job and completely buggering up the interview. I mean, that was kind of like the way Rory McIlroy handled the fourth round. He had the 54-hole lead, and you know what it's like with a 54-hole lead. Everyone expects you to win from there. 2 strokes should be plenty. He's blown that on the first hole, and it was almost like when he got behind, he started to play really well. So he was behind after the second hole. He birdies 3 and 4. Fast forward through to the middle of the round, he makes birdie on 9 and 10 and then makes an inexplicably poor bogey. And he was lucky to only make 5 on the 11th. Settles himself with a regulation par on 12. The tournament is essentially over as he's playing the 13th hole, and somehow manages to hit an 80-yard wedge shot, maybe 40 feet offline and into the tributary of Rays Creek. So then the tournament is gone again. He then plays the most incredible shot on 15 to get himself back into the tournament. He's got a 5-foot putt for eagle there, and if he makes it, it's over. He hits the worst putt I've ever seen, and then suddenly he's allowed everyone else back in. Plays an incredible shot on 17 and has the tournament on his own hands, just needs par to win. And then on 18, a wedge from 125 yards that misses the green. I mean, for a bloke of his talent, that is inexplicably poor. And then he has a 5-foot putt to win the whole thing and misses that as well. So it was incredible drama, Wallace, and it was fascinating to watch. And I'm glad he won it because, the mental hurdles he would have had to have overcome had he blown it would have been not insignificant.
For those that haven't seen it, there's a great 8-minute video with Bob Rotella, the sports psychologist who works with Rory. If you're interested in the bigger picture and how these professionals think about the game, which is very different to us amateurs, it is unbelievable. I'll pop the link in the show notes.
Bob Rotella's written a couple of books. One is called Putting Out of Your Mind. The other is Golf is Not a Game of Perfect. And they're actually really relatable to life. I don't think you've got to be a golf nut like you and me to actually get something out of those books. So, yeah, Bob Rotella is someone to keep a bit of an eye out for. The sports psychologist for Rory. He's been the go-to sports psychologist for an incredible amount of golfers. He's got a really remarkable way of thinking about sport and, just not being worried about making mistakes because they're inevitable in a sport like golf.
Yes, and I think he's Bob Rotella credits around about 82, I think, major championships.
Yeah. Hey, just a bit of an aside on the Masters. I don't know if you saw this. I know that LIV and the PGA Tour in this ongoing battle over the structure of the future of golf, and LIV really has taken a few hits outside of Adelaide where it's extraordinarily popular. It's really struggled for relevance. And I thought the relevant struggle was really significant on 17. Patrick Reed, who was in and around the top 5 at the time, and he's playing the 17th hole. He hits an approach and it goes in. Now, what's unusual about the fact that it went in there was he did not know it had gone in. Now, you can't see the top of the green. It's an uphill stroke on 17. But under normal circumstances, the crowd would be absolutely going off its tree if someone in the last 3 or 4 groups has made an ace. What had happened was, and I listened to another podcast and found this out, it was you're not allowed to have your mobile phone on the grounds at the Masters. So you are reliant on information solely by looking at the big leaderboards. And they're big mechanical leaderboards that they get, the metal behind the actual scoreboard gets lowered down, a new number gets posted in and it gets folded back up. Well, what had happened was, as Reed was about to play that stroke, they had lowered down the backing of the scoreboard because they were going to update Rory McIlroy's score. So the entire crowd around the 17 green are watching intently for that scoreboard to be folded back up with the new number of what Rory had made on 15, I think it might have been at the time. And so poor old Patrick Reed, LIV golfer, struggling for relevance, makes an eagle 2, one of the most incredible strokes seen on the 17th hole. And no one was watching because they were too busy looking at a mechanical scoreboard.
So, Hookie, any final thoughts on this year's Masters?
I tell you what, Wallace, one thing did occur to me, and I don't know if this occurs to you. I've got to ask the question, what would be the value on any golf club hosting a men's professional golf tournament in the modern era? So the Australian Open, I expect, is going to be at Royal Melbourne this year. That hasn't quite been confirmed yet, but I imagine they're going to be looking for venues around Australia over the course of the next 3, 4, 5 years. Adelaide has had extraordinary success hosting the LIV golf tournament, certainly from a gallery's perspective. And I wouldn't be surprised if there's been some conversations between James Sutherland and Peter Malinauskas about whether a Golf Australia event, i.e. the Australian Open, women's or men's, would suit Australia. I think we had the women's event here for 5 years and it was extraordinarily successful until COVID hit. But a men's professional golf tournament, I just do not see the merit in, quite honestly. You think about, let's say they ring up Kooyonga. Just as a complete example, I'm not saying that they have run Kooyonga, but you think about what you'd have to do at Kooyonga. Firstly, you'd have to extend as many holes as you possibly could to make it long enough to justify the men's professional game. So you are building out tee blocks that your members are probably almost never going to use. You might have to reconfigure an area between the 3rd hole, the 4th hole, and the 9th and 10th holes, where there's quite a large scrub area that you could actually redevelop a longer par 3. I think that's something that they would be encouraged to do. You lose your golf course for at least 2 weeks, and you don't really play it in any sort of format that is playable for about 8 or 9 weeks in the lead up to it. And you do that, and you probably got to pay for the privilege. Now, the next thing that you've got coming back to you on the other end is a bunch of modern professional male golfers who just seem determined to complain about everything. Now, I accept that there are some who are always pretty complimentary about the golf courses they play on, that are prepared to, within an inch of their lives to make it as playable as possible for the professional player. But I just want to take you through a couple of things that stood out to me from the Masters. I mean, Augusta National is the most incredibly well-presented golf course going around. And there was a couple of clips from a few of the players. And I'm thinking, if you're clipping Augusta National, what are you going to be like clipping Kooyonga or Glenelg or Royal Adelaide or Grange, where, you could possibly host an Australian Open tournament? So this came from Bryson DeChambeau. This is his quote. "What's crazy is the third hole. Hit it up there to 20 feet. I'm like, okay, that's exactly the way I wanted to play the hole. And that putt, I've never seen a putt faster than that. Those greens got really fast. The agronomists here at Augusta National and the Masters, they know how to play complete tricks on you." So this wasn't the fact that he overhit that first putt, hit it 9 feet past and missed the one coming back. This was that the agronomists at Augusta National were playing tricks on him. And then I thought the other one that was interesting was Jordan Spieth, a former winner of the Masters. "My iron play killed me the last 2 days, and to be brutally honest with you, it was primarily mud balls." Now, what we're talking about mud ball is that the ground is soft and it attracts mud, and then it becomes hard to hit your next shot unless you can clean it. And on the PGA Tour, they just play lift, clean, and place routinely. They don't allow that at the Masters. So the second part of his quote, "It's just so frustrating because you can't talk about them here. You're not supposed to talk about them." So here we are. We've got two guys who are world leaders in the game clipping the most incredibly presented golf course in the world. And they're the quotes that are always going to stand out. So, yeah, I can imagine they come to Kooyonga or Glenelg or Royal Adelaide and Grange, the top players in the world, and they'll just be, routinely critical of the course, that the course is actually stumping up cash and moving its members away and spending a heck of a lot of money on the host. So, yeah, if I ran a golf club, in particular a member-based golf club, and a men's professional golf outlet came to me and said, "Could you host our event?" I would just turn around and say, absolutely not, under no circumstances. It has no interest whatsoever. The women are different because you've got existing tee blocks there and you don't need quite the infrastructure. But for the men, no, not for me.
I think there was still 2 professional golfers that scored 11 under at the Masters.
Absolutely right, and it's not supposed to be easy. It's a major, for goodness sake. We don't need people shooting 25, 30 under. Anyway, look, that whole discussion is for another time. But you're going to set an Australian Open up pretty tough. And, what follows that is golfers complaining about it. I don't know why you would ever get yourself into bed with a professional tournament, because there is, certainly in Australia anyway, there's almost no merit in it. And I think what will be instructive is how Grange approaches the future of LIV. So they're signed for 2026. Do they really want it for 2027, or have they had enough? Even with they were getting a check, and I don't know if there'll be a check in 2027, 2028, because if they don't want it, they're going to have to find somewhere else for it. But I imagine the economy of that is such that LIV and the government may not be stumping up quite the cash that they would be hoping for to continue to hosting that event.
Maybe they have to move to a private course rather than a members course.
Yeah, that's right. But, tell me the public course in Adelaide that's fit for professional golf right now. There isn't one. So
the first one that came to mind for me is in Victoria, St Andrews Beach.
Yeah. Well, but, again, that's a long way out of Melbourne. Difficult to get crowds there. Yep. So, that would be a challenge in its own right. Hey, can I change tack for a moment?
Sure.
At what point in sport should someone be so tainted that the organisation just has to say, actually, no, thank you, but we're not interested? Something stumbled across, just caught my attention this week. It was Jared Healy and Kane Corns on the Sports Day show on SEN talking about the fact that there is a vacancy at the Melbourne Football Club for a CEO. And why don't we just play this audio?
They need to get themselves a CEO. I said last night to Jono, go and knock on Demetrio's door.
Yeah.
Get him out of a semi-retirement.
Would you think he'd be up for it?
Got a feeling he might be.
Really?
I've got a feeling
Okay.
if they up the ante to what it should be for somebody of his calibre, he's got a few board positions, but there's got to be one more challenge left in the Grade AD.
He'd stir them up, wouldn't he?
He'd get them going.
That would be perfect.
There you go. So that is Jared Healy suggesting that Andrew Demetriou, the former CEO of the AFL, would be a good fit as the Melbourne CEO. And the way I heard that, Wallace, and you might think it a little bit differently, but gee, it sounded for everything to me like Jared Healy, a former Melbourne player himself, has had a conversation with someone high up on the committee, the board of the Melbourne Football Club, and that the approach to Andrew Demetriou has already been made, and this is something that's brewing, and they're just trying to encourage him to get it over the line. It sounded like a bit of a plant to me. Did you sense that?
Mm-hmm. I did, yep.
Can we just have a bit of a discussion about the recent history of the working life of Andrew Demetriou? He was heavily involved in an organisation called Acquire Learning. That collapsed with $150 million in debts. He was sued by creditors initially for $44 million. He settled in the end by paying out $360,000. There were allegations of breaches of director duties and shadow director claims. Now, they only accepted $360,000 because they knew that the expense of trying to get more like $44 million out of someone like Andrew Demetriou was going to cost other creditors so much, it would have been impossible to pursue. So they settled on $360,000. This is also the same Andrew Demetriou who was on the board of Crown Casino, and the New South Wales Liquor and Gaming Authority found that board to be unsuitable to hold a casino licence in New South Wales, and they told that board, the chair and Andrew Demetriou would need to resign if Crown wanted to remain in business in Sydney. On the back end of that, the Victorian Gambling Commission lost faith in Demetriou, and by stating associates must be of good repute, having regard to character, honesty and integrity. He appeared in the New South Wales Tribunal over allegations of money laundering that had been framed against Crown, and his time in the witness stand was widely pilloried and regarded as evidence that wasn't credible. So there has been a litany of allegations of significant impropriety against Andrew Demetriou, and only the AFL would just look beyond all of that, just the boys' club that it is, and just decide that, yeah, this is the ideal guy to be a candidate for the CEO of a football club. I'm stunned by it. There is, I mean, even the South Australian Cricket Association made, I think, quite a significant faux pas. They actually booked him to speak at a Sacca in business function. And there were some people who wrote into the organisation and said, how can you be in bed with this guy? And they actually, to their credit, withdrew his invitation to speak and formulated another plan. Andrew Demetriou as CEO of my football club, I would be quite ashamed if the Melbourne Football Club went down that road. And the AFL, Andrew Dillon, should be stepping in and saying, no, this guy is far too tainted for our organisation. I don't think any other sport would cop that. Just the AFL seems to have this remarkable capacity, and Gerard Healy's approach to it is such that they turn incredible blind eyes to things that they just decide they don't think needs to be all that important when the rest of society would disagree.
Now, Hookie, it's the Easter weekend. What are your thoughts on Good Friday footy?
Yeah, I really quite vehemently dislike it, Wallace. I think it is absolutely entirely unnecessary. Do we need football every day? Do we need football every public holiday? Do we need it forced down our throat on? Let's be honest. I mean, my family has Christian heritage. I understand. I'm not, an absolute white-knuckled devotee, but I mean, if we understand the basis of Good Friday, it is, a pretty solemn day on the Christian calendar. For the rest of us, it's just become this reason to, live our secular lives and sort of ignore what it's all supposed to be about. I would have two things. Either we properly observe Good Friday and what it stands for, and that it is actually a bit of a solemn day on the Christian calendar, or we just leave the Catholics to it, go and have your day, and the rest of us just don't have it as a public holiday, and we turn up and go to work and just live our lives normally. The fact that we've got to have two games of footy on today, both of them in the afternoon, I think is completely and utterly unnecessary. The United States, probably a far more religious country than us, they don't actually have Good Friday as a public holiday. It's just a normal working day for them. And, if you're Catholic or if you're Christian and you embrace Good Friday, then go ahead and embrace it, okay? But for the rest of us, there is two options. Either we observe it and we observe it properly, or we ignore it and we actually turn up for work on a Friday. That's my stance.
So Hookie Gather Round has been and gone. Where to from here?
What a success. Perhaps beyond anyone's imagination. Great year one, better year two, the ultimate in year three. Do you know what's hilarious is the AFL still trying to play us off to a break because they might be interested in moving it somewhere else. Right now, I think it's time for the South Australian government and Peter Malinauskas to say, go on, I dare you. In actual fact, we will take Gather-Round for the next 3, 4, 5 years. And let me present to you a number that we are going to bid to continue hosting Gather-Round. Here's the number on the check, $0, 0 cents. I just do not get any sense of any other state in Australia being able to do nearly as good a job, even with paying out the 30 or 40 million that we're probably paying, something along those lines with regard to some contra of investing back into community sport. I just reckon we're on that stronger ground. You think about anywhere else in Australia where they could send Gather-Round. Sydney would largely ignore it. Brisbane doesn't have the venues. Melbourne, no point anyway. I mean, that's where most of the footy is already played.
Yep.
So the two states that seem to be actively bidding for Gather-Round is Western Australia and Tasmania. Both of those places, you lose that concept of the family drive, the day-long drive from Melbourne into Adelaide, which a lot of people make. There's no other way to get to Western Australia or Tasmania than to fly in. And can you imagine the price gouging that will go on from airlines that week? It will be scandalous. We'll have situations where a family in Melbourne will be better off flying Malaysian Airlines to Perth via Kuala Lumpur than it will be direct to Perth because it'll be a cheaper flight. So I reckon South Australia is in such a good position right now. This is the best AFL football week outside of the grand final, which has its own markers. You could 100% make the argument that we're actually doing more for the AFL than the AFL is doing for us. And we don't need to be paying for the privilege as well. I reckon it's gone that well that that's the way we should be approaching this from here on. I dare you to take it off us.
Yeah, it is the perfect space for it. There's no doubt about it. Now, Adelaide United hooky, there's a new club record.
Yeah, so tomorrow night, Isaias, tomorrow night, Good Friday, he will play his 286th game for the club. It will go past the record set by legendary goalkeeper for the club, Eugene Galekovic, and it probably leaves Isaias an interesting story. He came as a recruit from Spain, Isaias Sanchez, his name is, was only going to play a year or two at Adelaide, and, you know, as is what happens in international football, that you move on pretty quickly, but family loved it here, decided to settle, and here he still is. So I've got Isaias in my top 5 all-time greatest Adelaide United players. I'd go Bruce Jitte, Eugene Galekovic, Craig Goodwin, Travis Dodd. I probably got Goodwin at 1, but I reckon if Isaias was to play on next year, he's in discussions with the club to extend his contract, and he gets to 300 games, I would put him up to number 2 behind Craig Goodwin, who I think has been our greatest ever Adelaide United player. So, yeah, what a star he has been, and what a South Australian he has become from someone who, was one of those transient international soccer or football players who just happened to stay here for a year or two and love it so much. He's settled here and seems like he's going to be one of us for life. Hey, just very quickly, Carl Viet, why is he still coaching this club? They've told him that he's not going to be coaching next year. I imagine it's just a cash arrangement. They don't want to have to pay anyone else to take over, and he doesn't want to lose his payment if he moves on early. But this is just a sad way for things to be finishing up where patently he just does not want to be there, and patently they don't want him there, but they're doing this silly little dance until the end of the year. They're 7th, for goodness sake. They're not like a complete basket case. Yes, they've been terrible in the last couple of months. He's a legend of the club, coaching the team that he, made his own. He was a star player, and it's ending like this. It's just so sad to see this finishing up where you've got two people who don't want to be together, but we're forcing them together probably through cash. And it's unbecoming for both the club and for Carl to be doing this when they patently don't want to be involved with each other anymore. It's really sad.
Yeah, couldn't agree more.
Hey, Wallace, before we go, I know that we've got to get to the interview with our 2-star golfers from Glenelg, but can I just wish happy birthday to Alan Shiell, former first-class cricketer for South Australia, who gave the game away at 24 to become an advertiser journalist in cricket, went on to be the guy who broke the yarn that World Series cricket was imminent in the late 1970s. So 1977 was the first year of World Series cricket. It was Alan Shiell who sniffed it out and broke the story. He was also the journalist who told Ian Chappell that he'd replaced Bill Laurie as captain of Australia. So found him at a restaurant, heard that he was at a restaurant, rang up that restaurant. He was the first one to tell Ian Chappell that he'd been made captain of Australia. So he turned 80 last week. Incredible guest list at his birthday. Greg Chappell was there, Rex Sellers was there, KG Cunningham was there, Les Burdett, Mike Coward. So, yeah, just an incredible figure in South Australian cricket, nicknamed Chef because of his surname Shiell, Sheffield Shiell. So, yeah, just wanted to wish Alan a very happy birthday. He's been a real cherished figure in South Australian cricket for many years, and it was great to see that he got a wonderful birthday. If you're enjoying this podcast, I'd encourage you to take a listen to Beyond the Club. It's a project I've been working on with Flinders University. Now I co-host it with Professor Sam Elliott, and we break down all the latest research on how to maximise the experience of junior and club athletes. There's a range of resources, special guests, and cutting-edge info on how you can make your club a safer, happier place for your kids and their club mates. Beyond the Club, wherever you get your podcasts. Well, last weekend saw the wrap of the South Australian Golf Pennant season, couple of grand finals, the Simpson Cup for the men, the Sanderson Cup for the women. And it was the yellow and black who prevailed in both the men's and the women's competition, and two of their star players have been good enough to join us to take us through it. From the Glenelg Golf Club, men's captain is Michael Munn. The junior captain, I believe, and a key member of the team is Zoe Manton. Michael, Zoe, welcome to Hooked on Sport and congratulations on an incredible achievement.
Thanks, Hookie. Yeah, it's great to be here, mate.
Thank you.
Money, I'll start with you, my man. What an incredible couple of weeks. I don't know that you had the best minor round, but your team certainly performed as good as it possibly could have at the right time.
Yeah. So we had one little blip in the minor round. So our first game of the year, we took on our arch rival Kooyonga, and that was really close. I listened to your podcast with Heath Ritchie's,
yep.
And I concur his thoughts. We always have a tough battle. We went down 4-3, but that didn't really concern us. But a game against Royal Adelaide at Royal Adelaide, that was sort of the low in the season, and we regrouped from there and had a couple of things. We had good chats with our coaches and stuff, and then we sort of regrouped and changed a couple of things, and we were onwards and upwards from there. And we definitely did peak at the right time, leading into the semis and final. So yeah, it was really good.
I felt like you might have been one or two men down for that match against Royal Adelaide as well. But what do you do in those circumstances? You talked about, you revisited a few things without giving away the game plan here, mate. Just I guess take us behind the curtain on what you do actually try and do to adjust how you're performing.
The pennant season can go quite long. So we did have, I think, is equally as good as, I'm very biased, I suppose. We did miss Cade Bryant. I think he's the best player in the state. That game, Jack Leonard, who had a tremendous year stepping up his game and playing number 2, was really sick. So our top 2 players are out, but we like to think that we have a really deep squad. In that long season, you can kind of lose a bit of form if you're not playing and practicing as, if you're working full time. So we sort of just made sure that we just control what we can control. Instead of thinking about, selection or who's playing or who we're playing, we just control what we can control. And we sort of had a bit of a mantra with the coaches of we're going to be positive at every aspect. So we just we regrouped. We had to put comments into our coaches and make sure that we're being positive. And if there are things we need to work on, is to making sure we're finding time outside of what we normally do and giving that one extra, because I felt the year was really tight. And I felt like from that moment on, we projected really well, and I think the boys hit form really at the last minute. There's no big secret there, Hookie. I think what our club does really well is that we pride ourselves on representing Glenelg really well. We just all put in the work and just make sure that we're getting the best out of ourselves.
Zoe, almost a carbon copy for the women's season in the Sanderson Cup. Didn't have an amazing minor round. Went in probably even to the semi-final as slight underdogs. Royal Adelaide were 1 or 2 down, I reckon, in that semi-final. But it probably looked like at the end of the minor round that Glenelg were going to participate in finals and maybe not do much else. You must be so proud of what you did in those final 2 weeks of the year.
Yeah, I think it took us a little bit to kind of find our groove. In the beginning of the season, our team, we weren't as gelled, I would say. For me, it was my first round back just coming back from an injury. So my first round being Pennant, it took me a couple of weeks to really like get back into that competitive aspect. I think with the finals, our round before the semis was essentially a quarterfinal, because if we didn't win against Blackwood at Blackwood, we weren't going to make it into the semis. So coming into the semis, we were kind of on a bit of a high from winning the week before, because if we didn't win, we wouldn't be playing. And then I think I don't really know what happened. We just all kind of thought, right, let's take it home this year. I mean, we had such a good group of Glenelg teams in the finals. We had, was it 4 or 5 of us in finals? So we thought, this is the year we're going to do it. And yeah, we all just kind of kicked into a bit of an aggressive attitude and just went out there and put our best games forward. And we all kind of, as Munny was saying, our form kind of all hit at the right time when it came to the grand final as well.
Zoe, just talk a little bit about your team. An incredible blend of youth and experience. There's yourself, Rebecca Hardy, and Maya Jakapek. I hope I've pronounced her name correctly, as these 3 youngsters. And then Jill Hodge playing at 1, who I'm not going to give away her age, but she's a grandmother and she's playing as good a golf as anyone in the competition right now. And Sarah Crocker, who also a mum and a star performer, the mid-amateur champion in South Australia at the moment as well. So 3 youngsters with a couple of really experienced players. You must bounce off each other really nicely.
Yeah, well, I like to say that 3 of us, Beck, Maya and I, we were born and raised in Pike. That was when we kind of started playing match play a bit differently. For me, I played match play for the Vines for a couple of years when I was younger. But when I came to Pike and being mothered by everyone in that team, we were nicknamed the Pikelets. It was a pretty iconic time, and we won 2 years in a row with that. And I especially just want to mention Lou Pike and Sue Tui, who are both incredible role models to me and have genuinely raised me in the world of Glenelg golf. So coming from that kind of environment and then coming into Sanderson with the 3 of us having played Pennant together for quite a few years, moving from Pike and then playing Sanderson with Jill. I mean, Jill's such an incredible player. She's so scary and aggressive. She does not stop. She does not give up. She was such an incredible number 1 for us and very inspiring as well. She said in all of her years of playing, it was her first time playing number 1 in Div 1 of Sanderson. So that was pretty inspiring. And she totally owned that spot, and we all felt so comfortable with where we were. We also had Grace Ferrier. She came up from Pike to play with us, and she wasn't able to play in our grand final because she's currently at Junior Interstate. Having Sarah, who's obviously like a super mum, she's also very inspiring to me, because when I'm a mum one day, I really want to be as good as she is, because she's got 2 young daughters, and yeah, she's just incredible. I think we had a little bit of a sandwich in our grand final. We had Jill and Sarah and then us 3 in the middle. So it's a pretty special experience. And I think, when I was talking about Pike before, they lost their grand final, but you couldn't tell because they were so incredibly happy for us and proud of us that whenever Sanderson wins with the 3 of us, which actually hasn't happened before, but it feels like a Pike win as well. And I think that that's, for the women's side, such a special aspect, is that we're all actually one big squad. And yeah, I wouldn't be half the player I am without the support of Sue Tui as my manager, who's just an incredible icon, really, and Lou Pike and a bunch of the other women in that Pike team. So it's a great mix that we have.
Yeah, some interesting storylines that you're talking about, Zoe. Pike Cup, for those who aren't quite sure, is like the second grade of the Sanderson Cup. So reserves, if you would like, for Pennant Golf. It's named in honour of Fiona Pike, who's a bit of a legend at Glenelg. So I know what a serious trophy that is. So the Pikelets is a beautiful name for you young kids coming through that second grade. And then Sue Tui, a huge name. Her family has been very, very heavily involved in golf. Her husband, Bob, has been a well-known tournament promoter for many, many years. So you're identifying some big names of South Australian golf who've made an enormous contribution. Talk about enormous contributions, Michael. Josh Hayes, a guy who's been around the scene for a number of years, as reliable as anyone in the competition this year. I think 6 wins from 7 games, which is extraordinary when he was playing at the top of the order and facing some real stars of across all clubs.
Yeah, that's right, Hookie. So Joshy missed a couple of years. He played for a long period of time from a junior stage, and then sort of once he didn't realise he was going to go to that next level, sort of golf become not as important, which is completely understandable, and then sort of had a couple of years off and we're really good mates. We shared some Simpson Cup wins before, and I just sort of said I could see we needing that one or two blokes to come back in our team. And last year, Joshy didn't have the year he wanted. He had, as he would say, but this year we played around at Glenelg not long before the season, and Simon Gallo came in the week. We played together, and Joshy's form was just rock solid from there. He shot 5 under at Glenelg, and just Simon said he hasn't seen blokes been able to play golf shots like that for ages. And we like to say to Joshy, keep that swagger going, mate, because when he does that, we all see it. We all, thrive off it. And he had an exceptional year. He was unbelievable. He's a great man. And I don't know, and I would like to have known, but I didn't want to sort of jinx us and ask anyone last week. But I'm not sure too many blokes have won 5 for Glenelg Simpson Cup medal. So we'll work that out one day. But he's very proud and very happy. So I hope that he's all right.
It'd be an interesting discussion across the competition as well, whether anyone's won 5. I'd hazarded a guess there has been, but it has bounced around a little bit. Kyonga 3, but their previous win was a while back. Heath might have 4, but Josh Hayes 5 would be an interesting discussion, wouldn't it? A couple of things I just want to touch base with you on. Firstly, just from your own perspective, Munny, you've been a very good cricketer in your day, played a lot of district cricket for Woodville. How do you retain that competitive desire to continue to compete at what's a very, very good level of sport? Is that something that you've been able to maintain? The rage sounds a little bit over the top, because golf and rage doesn't really go hand in hand, but just that capacity to still be prepared to prepare yourself as you need to 20 years on from when you were playing good level cricket.
Yeah, well, I didn't get the body type, Hookie, for my rage as a cricketer. I was a short little stumpy fellow who bowled off spin, and I wanted to be a fast bowler. I just love the contest, Hookie. I just love being in a competitive nature. I like to get the best out of myself, whether that was cricket, whether I'm now coaching footy with the kids. I just like people being successful and developing. And I like to say to the lads, be comfortable being uncomfortable. That's sort of how I sort of like to do things, especially in sport. And it's a real test, because I sort of picked up golf as soon as I stopped playing cricket. So I've had to work really hard. I've had some great people along the way to be able to educate me short game wise, like Ben Winton back at Blackwood, where it's softer ground. He taught me to use the bounce, which I'd never had any idea about. And then from that moment on, it sort of had little people along the way just help me through that. But just love being in the contest. There's nothing better than winning a contest, breaking it down step by step, and just holding in. So that's sort of how I lived it, Hookie. You got to be in it to win it, and you have a go, and then you learn and make mistakes and go again.
Zoe, what did you make of the early start and therefore early finish to the year? Normally a grand final is in the middle of July. It's freezing cold. You're wearing beanies and gloves between strokes. Was 30-odd degrees on Sunday, so lovely weather. What did you make overall of the move to earlier in the year?
I actually loved it. I thought it was great. Playing golf in summer obviously brings different challenges, and I think the only really negative of moving it was that we lost Grace and Jack to the junior interstate. But apart from that, the only thing I really miss about winter Pennant was just the challenge of it. I think it's going to be a lot harder in winter to play more golf, because Pennant drags you out of bed, gets you out there in the freezing cold. You put absolutely every layer on you that you have in the house. I used to have these electric hand warmers that I had to use because my hands would get so cold. So I think, the thrill of playing winter Pennant was, pretty cool. But yeah, when we played winter Pennant, we still started in autumn. So I think the first few rounds of Pennant were overlapping with our last few rounds of Pennant this year. But yeah, I think it's cool. I like it. I don't really have any complaints. I just kind of go along and play. But yeah, playing in the warmer weather was still really fun, and it just meant that instead of rugs in the cart, it meant that our manager had ice containers just so the Easter egg she brought for us on grand final day didn't melt. Yeah, no, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was cool. I think they should leave it. If they can sort out a way to get the juniors there for the grand final, that would be obviously ideal. We'll see. Maybe they'll move it, I'm not sure.
What did you think, Money? I mean, certainly for the women, the junior aspect of it is quite significant. There's all through the five teams, there are very talented youngsters who are still junior eligible. And yeah, that did affect certainly the grand final. I think the Australian Junior Amateur, which Megan Denton played and won, and she was a key out for Royal Adelaide in the week prior, I think, which was the semi-final. A bit different for the men. What did you make of it?
The semi-finalists in the Simpson, they all had one junior going away, so it sort of evened itself out a little bit, I suppose, in that way. I definitely like it. I just hope we can find a way where the players we can find a way to make sure that they can be available. But I completely understand also, like, representing your state is a really high achievement for Jack and Grace. You know, Jack went away and beat the top two amateurs this week alone, so he's kept his form. He's been amazing, and I'm not sure how Grace has gone. Being summer, been definitely helpful for my older body as well, and I know the other lads as well. But if we can, maybe even we can push it back a touch. You know, this weather this time of year is just magnificent, because that heat policy, there was a couple of testy times earlier on in the year where you weren't sure, and if you lose a couple early and you get a few heat policies, it can make your season very, very doubtful. So how we work that out, and then the heat policy changes also for juniors as well as seniors. So I think it's definitely good, and I think it needs to stay there. They will learn and make a few tweaks and see what happens, but I like it, yeah.
Doesn't really need me to editorialise, but I don't quite understand why we can't just play it's a 9-week season, so it's not super long, but you can extend that out over 14 weeks. If there's an event on that's going to clash, just take a week off and kick the can down the road. If this finished middle of May, I don't think anyone would have been too upset. But anyway, that's a decision for someone with far more intelligence than me to work out. Let's just talk about the finals very quickly, and I want to touch on your match, Zoe. A pivotal match in that grand final. You took on Matilda Miles. She's been one of the best players in the state for the last 5 years, and you dusted her, quite frankly, 6-5. So you came into that final and you played probably as good as you could have expected.
Well, first off, I just want to mention that she's an incredible player, and we've played each other a couple times. I played her last year in Sanderson at Curly, lost probably 4 or 5 down. I played her earlier this season at Royal, to the same place, and she beat me like 4 or 5 down, I think. But yeah, I don't really know what happened. I think the day before I had one of my best rounds ever, and so I just felt really comfortable and like confident in my game, and I just thought, I don't know, I think my attitude has changed quite a lot as I've grown up. I don't really believe in, just because someone's a better player doesn't mean you can't win now. I think I actually quite like being the underdog, because it gives me the room to just go out there, play my best golf, and just see where I end up. But yeah, we had a really good match. She kept coming back, and I had to keep my foot down and just keep going. But as I said earlier in the season, I wasn't quite there for the team. I think I lost my first 3 or 4 matches, and then I won all of the ones coming in. But I said to my dad, after I finally won a match, I said that I thought I was going to be defeated for the season instead of undefeated. So I think once I got on a little bit of a roll in terms of like where my game was at, my form, going into that Sunday, I thought if I could win mine, we have a very strong lower end of our team, and I knew that they would come in strong, and Beck and Sarah both won their matches quite convincingly. So I knew that if one of the top 3 of us, if one of us could come in, then it would probably likely secure the match. So I just really wanted that to be me, just to take the pressure off the other matches. It ended up being quite an early finish. I think the 3 matches that we won at least 4 up, all of them. So it was a bit of a bizarre final, because we thought we'd end up going right towards the end, but once the 3 of us were in, it was just kind of all over quite quickly, and it was it was great, but it was a little bit bizarre.
Zoe, are you across what's going on in other matches? I mean, for people who are listening this and not quite sure how match play works, it's singles match play. You go off in a pairing, and then it's maybe another 8 or 9 minutes before the pairing behind you comes. So you can be a little bit lost on a course from time to time with regard to the rest of the matches going on. How aware are you of what's happening around you outside of your own match?
I think it depends like what stage. There have been times when I've just been completely in the zone and haven't actually asked how everyone else is going, which is not great, but I think, focusing on my own match sometimes is really important. I think on the final day, I was very aware of where everyone was. It was actually quite funny because when I went down the 10th, I was 5 up at the time. And Maya, who tees off in front of me, she walked past and she said, "Oh, like, how are you going?" And I kind of pretty chill tone of voice, I said, "Oh, I think I'm 5." And I had my hand up, so 5 up. But she thought I was 5 down. So when we finished and she came running up to me and gave me a big hug and she was like, "I thought you were 5 down and I thought we were losing." And I was like, no, I was actually 5 up. So yeah, I'm actually quite aware, I think, of where everyone is at. And Fiona is such an incredible manager. She manages to pop up at exactly the right time. She visits me every couple of holes. I think early on, I think I knew Beck was a couple up throughout the day. I knew May was a couple down. I knew Jill was around square. I didn't really know what Sarah was doing, but I know Sarah's a player, so I was pretty confident that she was going to be able to come through. I'm focused on my own game, but at the same time, I like to know what everyone else is. And as I said, I was pretty confident that if I could win my match, that we would be okay in the end.
The other thing is you don't want to sort of brag too much. It's only you and an opponent. You don't want to go yelling out across 2 fairways, "Yeah, I'm 5 up." So
exactly.
Just the subtle hand in 5 is really all you want to give away. Money, your own match as well. You played Mickey Wilson at the Grange, who's been a really solid player for a couple of years now. 3 and 2, just that perfect match play victory, I suppose. Not too tight, but just a little bit of breathing room, but still a good solid match as well. Just give us the description of your own match and just how you could assess everything going on, in particular as captain, where you're probably a little bit more white-knuckled about it.
Yeah, so I'm a little bit different than Zoe. So semi-final, I got a bad habit of wanting to sort of want to know where everyone's at, because you sort of want to get to that end result. And that, for me, if I just stay in my lane, control, it was all right. So I purposely didn't really want to know where we're going, because we sort of said that leading in, control your control. So for my game, don't really like to talk about how you're playing, but I started off really well. That was as solid as I've played all year. I had a lip out on the 10th to go 4 under and 3 up. And I turned to my caddy and I said, "I'm only a couple up and I can't play much better." If he turns it on and I'm in a bit of strife. A big part of my day was an up and down on 12, really hard hole, couple hundred metres. Long par 3. And a lot of people there, and we sort of had to wait. And I sort of won the 11th to go 3 up, and then sort of hit a really nice shot, hit the green and just went through, and sort of off it went. And then Matty was just short right. So I was really confident he was getting up and down, and just got up and down. And I turned to him and said, "I feel really good here." And then I lost the next to a birdie. He held a 20-footer down the hill, and then I won the next, and sort of it was there from there. So
3 up, 4 to play, and you'd like to think that you can.
Yeah,
you feel like you've got the finish line in sight, don't you?
Yeah, and it's really difficult, because you get a feeling, you don't want to know what everyone's going, but you can sort of, all of a sudden the crowds get bigger. So you sort of, when I say crowds, it's not a massive crowd. Everyone comes to your game because you go, well,
there's a few that are done.
A few that are done, and at that time on the 16th RA is a really, really hard hole, like a domey type of green, and it's really hard to hit. Wind was off the left and I faded the ball, so I sort of hit it dead straight in the bunker. Matty went in the bunker, and as I was walking up, I seen Cade, and I'm like, "Oh wow, and I knew Zach in front was up, and I'm like, right, if I get up and down here, this could be it. This is it."
So just to clarify, Cade's playing number 1 for you, and so he's the last pairing out. So if he's finished, he's 1-1 convincingly. Yeah, which he did, 6 and 5, I think, didn't he?
Yeah, I heard on the 15th green. And number 2, Gally, who come in, was 3 up with 5 to play. Cade was there, and I'm like, poor, So you just sort of couple of deep breaths and big sip of water, and played a really nice bunker shot to less than a foot.
That is a nice one.
Yeah, I was really happy with that. And even better, Hooky, too, it's on video, that's going to be around forever, so that's even better. But no, so then we shook hands, and then Zach Bray had finished just before me, so it was it. And then, yeah, it's really nice. It was a really good feeling. So having the people around, and then our first thought after we all embraced and got around was go and see where the girls are at. That's one thing that we do as a club really well, is support each other. The three young girls are hard to break into that conversation pack, Cookie, but they're really good to, dragging the other girls along and setting some standards. So it was really good. We had a big team photo. Everyone was around the 14th, 15th, and it was just happy. And seeing some older people at the golf club who are massive supporters of Pennant, who come and watch every week. It was nice to see them emotional, give you hugs, and just say thank you, which is, that's what it's all about. So it was wonderful. It was really, really cool.
Talked about your bunker shot on 16 on video. I did see a video that I won't replay of a group of Glenelg members and players all singing the Tigerland song at the celebration that night. Money, you did say before we actually hit record that it was a pretty good night. Just for the listeners, just take us through the celebrations, because they would have been pretty raucous down there.
Yeah.
What's the Pinehurst, or what do you call your restaurant?
Pine Hill.
Pine Hill. Thank you.
Our club, Paul Grosvenor is our captain. You won't get a bigger supporter in Pennants, and he's come in and we were supposed to have him for round one. But we got these golf bags, Titleist golf bags with Glenelg on the big pocket and the Glenelg logo on the front pocket. And they just looked really cool. Like mates with Ross Steedman, the captain of Grange, and he's got this beautiful green bag with Grange. And he's just like, you guys just do it so well. Our uniforms are mint. Everything this year was really, really cool. And so we have a big celebration every year, our presentation night. We sort of controlled ourselves in the change rooms because there's quite a bit of time after, and we sort of had a few beers and quiet ones in there and just sort of getting around each other. And then once all the formalities were over, Hookie, blokes like myself, not so much Zoe. Zoe's very, very well behaved. We sort of just let it go, and whatever happened and have some fun. I'm sure, I know you've been in these change rooms when stuff happens, mate. So yeah, you can imagine.
Perhaps after this conversation's finished, you can tell me what North Terrace looks like at about 6:30 in the mornings, mate. Zoe, what about for you? You've got a couple of kids in your team who are probably not old enough to have a quiet wine yet. Would that be about right?
Well, actually, this was the first year that the three Pikelets were 18. So we all had a little shamper together, which was nice because Grace was away as well. So she wasn't left out of that. She'll be old enough soon. Yeah, I actually had work the next morning. So I had a bit of a earlier bedtime, and I got up really early to watch the Masters, and just that entire weekend was insane. It was my brother's 21st on the Friday, and then we had, Saturday I played one of my best rounds, and then Sunday we had winning the grand final, and then we had Masters, and watching Rory do that was insane. I was outside of my work and I was calling Dad because I wanted to know what was happening. Tears were just streaming out of my face, and it was just such an emotional weekend. I think a lot of pride. Yeah, it was a pretty cool moment. So I was definitely asleep for majority of the time that Money was parading around. But, it was a great night, a good celebration. Pennant dinner is always, such a special time for us all to come together. And as Money said, seeing some of the other members in the club that mean so much to us, and being able to celebrate with them, for me especially with the Pike team, and Sue Tui and Bob Tui and Helen as well. It was just, it was a very special night, a special weekend for Glenelg. Yeah, it was cool.
And just a quick one on the course, a major redevelopment at Glenelg coming to, I think you can see the light at the end of the tunnel. There's been a lot of work done, and I think getting to a close, Money.
Yeah. So 8 and 9 are done, and they're just embedding. When you drive in the main entrance at Glenelg now, that 9th hole is that's going to be as photoed as any golf hole in South Australia for a while. That's just going to look unbelievable. Had to be done. We got 3 holes to go after this, and they're going to do them all at once. I think 8 and 9 will come in around June, and then the big sun is there waiting for us to enjoy it for the next 20 years. So they've done a tremendous job. It's been really difficult. I know that some members can not like everything that they've done, and change. Not everyone likes change, but they've done a tremendous job. They should be really proud of themselves.
It's like Adelaide Oval, isn't it? when Adelaide Oval was being redeveloped, we were all up in arms. This is ridiculous. Leave it as it is. It's the most beautiful ground in the world. And then it's finished and we go, this is amazing. This was way better than what we had before. And I'm sure that'll be the same for Glenelg. I mean, look, in Neil Crafter's hands, Ryan van der Veen as well, I think has got his fingerprints on it. These are smart blokes who know what they're doing. So I wouldn't be too fussed. Just very quickly, Zoe, you said you had one of your best rounds on the Saturday. Just shame us all. Tell us what you shot.
Oh, nothing crazy. It was 3 under. I've shot 1 under a couple times, but I've also been quite under, like 4 under before, but it hasn't always finished that way. And Kate actually teases me quite a bit because the number of times I've been under par on the front 9 and not exactly finished that way. Yeah, it was just had a good day, I think. And then on the Sunday I played probably similar golf. So yeah, it was pretty cool.
Oh, congratulations to you both, Zoe. I am reliably informed that there was a couple of members of your family who had mixed emotions when you defeated Royal Adelaide in the semi-final. I think a number of your family members have got some stakes in the ground over at Royal Adelaide, but I guess you probably got a little bit of home advantage for that final. To the both of you, congratulations. Well played. Money, wonderful leadership, Zoe. You've got an enormous career ahead of you. Thanks so much for your time. On behalf of everyone at Hooked on Sport, which is just me and Wallace, but on behalf of both of us, congratulations on everything you've achieved, and well done to the Glenelg Golf Club for what has been an outstanding performance.
Thank you, Hookie.
Thank
you, Wallace.
Thank
Appreciate
you so
it.
much. Thank you.
That's a wrap on another episode of Hooked on Sport. A quick reminder to follow us and leave a review if you enjoy what you hear. Your support helps Hooked on Sport reach even more sports-minded people just like you. We appreciate your support and look forward to your company next week on Hooked on Sport.